Hey, welcome to Thomas and Michael podcast. We talk about things, all things AI, occasional jokes, and yeah, let's get it started. First episode here. Please welcome my co-host, Michael Kir. Please introduce yourself.
Hi guys. So as you know, AI. Does anybody really know AI? And we're here to talk about it. We're here to dive in. We're here to discuss. We're here to find out what really stands behind the AI. Is it actual Indians? So wait to listen to the full episode to find out.
Yeah, so that's the occasional jokes that I mentioned. Please don't pay too much attention. Um, Great. So behind the scenes, we were just talking about um, your journey in AI, what you're up to. Um, would you mind giving us a little taste? You're a very busy man, as we all know. Um, what you been up to?
Yeah, I like to give people a taste. No, so you know, I've been listening to this incredible book. It's called "I Was" by Steve Wozniak, right? And it's quite inspirational, actually, because largely, you tend to think of a lot of innovation coming from very obvious hotspots, but this guy just once again demonstrates that people who are just working regular jobs, right, not actually included in major trends, are sometimes the ones that are making amazing innovations in this sector. And so when sometimes when I would like to practice some tools and figure some stuff out, you obviously want to ship it to the consumers. Now, I've created something called Squirkle Labs, which is a shape of a squircle, which is the same shape as your app icon on the any Apple device that you have. And essentially, the idea is that had a bunch of projects. I put them together under one roof, and I'm working on a new application which is called Martini. Now, I've released something called Martini before, which is an OS level orchestrator for AI tooling. But this actually goes a step forward and says, okay, regular people, they would like to use AI on their phone locally, right, on edge, not having to pay for tokens. So it's going to be a less capable version of ChatGPT, but straight from your phone, and it's going to start being not very capable, and then build a feature by feature by feature. And this is something that I think, from a project management perspective, has been super helpful because, Tom, you probably would agree with this. When you know exactly what you need to do and you put measurable milestones in front of you, you know, that is incredibly more efficient, and you work incredibly faster because you know exactly what things you need to tackle rather than just tackling some abstract vision.
Yeah, listen, so much to unpack there. We've got like I think three great themes going on. Immediately, I thought about you mentioned project management. At some point, I would love to discuss what is the nature of um, people who create with AI. There's a common consensus that is shifting from being just engineers to being product and project managers. So you're orchestrating agents. Thus, you need to have a bit of taste about what does the product look like. I think that would be a good topic to go through. The second, we talked about the rebrand. You're hearing it live here, guys, because I'm hearing it for the first time as well. So I'll be very excited to deep into that. And thirdly, I realized we actually haven't mentioned where we met. So we could just briefly outline that for a bit of background
Hey,
for
I'll see that.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
we
Uh,
met on a date. No.
yeah, Hinge date. Yeah. But for AI enthusiasts.
Yeah.
Um, no, we met at the Data Science Festival, which I actually went to the second time last week, which was quite fun in London. They were celebrating their 10th birthday. Michael was obviously too busy with the investors to come join us, um, or with the other responsibilities. Yeah, it was great fun. That's where we met and immediately clicked over all things AI. So yeah, you were mentioning your rebrand. So you're collecting all your tools and trying to package them as a single product. That's very interesting. And also you mentioned local AI. Could you just give us a little intro of local AI and why is it your passion? Because you know, definitely is because a lot of your products are centered around it. So could you just give the listeners a bit of an introduction, what it is, how could they use it, and why is it so much better than ChatGPT?
No, I don't think it's that much better than ChatGPT. It just depends what you use it for, and for your average grandpa and grandma, who just learned how to use their iPhone, or Android, you know, you simply just need them to be like, here's a tool, all right, don't worry about it. Just use it, use as much as you want. It's going to be less capable, but again, it's not like they need codecs like to get some agents going so they can ship an app, right? I'm sure grandpa is busy doing his grandpa stuff. um well, all jokes aside, I do feel very strongly that there's a sense that those tools need to be as capable as possible, right? But realistically, people who use that, right, at the end of the day, all they need is a couple things, right? They need to be able to just use the models for their
Mm-hmm.
training data, pretty much. Um, they need to be able to access the internet, compare some files at most. This is it. This is as far as it goes. Obviously, you can make the tool more capable, but shipping a feature at a time is phenomenal. You know, if you look back at the history of computing, you and Steve Wozniak talks about this in his book quite a lot. If you wanted to ship a program, right, you had to ship actual hardware with the software, whether it be like a little disk of some sort that you plug in, or actually shipping it. Some microprocessors, microcontrollers, you actually had to program. Right, check this out. So you had these massive mainframe computers with a time sharing terminal, right? You make an application there, and then you take that code and you burn it onto a microprocessor. And think about it. This is a level of iteration. Oh, and then you find out you got something wrong. When one byte was off. Great. Now you have to go back to the terminal, rewrite the program, and then burn it again onto the microprocessor, and then it may work, right? So what Steve Wozniak did, he didn't have money for my time sharing terminals. So what he did was he actually wrote them on paper, right? Which is just incredible. And you think, we're like, oh damn, we have bottlenecks right now. We can't. We need more agents. We need to be able to put more horsepower at the problem. The bro literally used pen and paper to program, ones and zeros, machine code, right? So that he could program microcontrollers. That is the creation of our computing history right there, right? The Apple One and Apple Two, which basically represent how personal computers exist in the form they do. This is, uh, phenomenal. And again, those computers using microprocessors were not as capable as the mainframes, right? We're talking about devices that couldn't necessarily reprogram their own chips once you wrote the program.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have computers that can use software updates to update themselves. Just think about it for a moment, right? In order to ship a new feature of software, you don't have to take the microprocessor and then put another piece of software on it, like isn't literally bunning it. That was the process called. You don't have to, right? This makes it incredible for iteration. So you can start with a very small MVP and then just keep adding on feature and feature wise, having a roadmap. But obviously, as people say, technical struggle is figuring out what the MVP actually is. And for me, the MVP was simply saying, okay, look, the most basic feature is, having just a local AI. You could ask, oh, write me a story. Right. So, and unlike my previous products, this product is not going to be free. It's going to charge just off a go standard 99p subscription. And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to think, well, what are you charging for? Even MVP wise, what are you charging for? And the answer is, I think, pretty simple, because one of the most difficult challenges is managing the state sessions, it's managing
Before we
the
dive into the
context.
technical part, could you just give the listeners an overview of what the product is and like just walk them step
It's
by
literally
step?
just a chat. It's literally just a chat.
Right. So it's a chat which lives on your phone using local models, meaning that it doesn't go to a server somewhere in San Francisco or in America, which stores your data.
Yeah,
Everything's stored locally, right?
yeah. They can't get your data. They can't get it.
Um, no, that'll be the other way around. Give us your data. But anyway, um,
No, that's
that's
Google.
great. Oh yeah, I mean
Yeah, that's Google.
yeah, great. And we just touched upon you've been telling me how you want to get into project management, and what I've been hearing recently is if a software engineer as a job might die out, it will be replaced with product managers and project managers because now it's the goal. Now you need to make certain decisions and orchestrate agents. Let's say, how do you market? How do you code? How do you do Q&A? How do you build like relationships and stuff? So it's a one can even be thought of as a one person company where you're the project management of everything.
This
So
is
what do you
this is quite interesting.
what do you think of that?
I do think people need to be able to project manage effectively. What I will say actually, there seems to be a lot of camps, right? Some people talk about the AI psychosis, and you know, you're quite Tom. You're a based guy, right? But I've done interviews, right? And so as we speak, right? I'm going through the final stage of a job. I'm waiting for the task to be given, right? But and this company is phenomenal, right? Because they're all for traditional software engineering. Because if you want to do semantic search, in your AI product, you have to use other algorithms for two reasons, right? Number one is cost. If you use tools like BERT, it's just simply cheaper to get semantic results. Just simple. And number two, right? It's faster and it's better. So it's cheaper and it's better. So we have traditional software tools, and that's not going anywhere. You still have to understand that. You still have to, and the other thing, which I will talk about a little bit later, is if you don't know, like AI is, allows you to increase your speed, increase your capability. But if you're not a capable person initially, that's going to be very difficult, right? People still need to learn, and I'll talk about in a little bit why I think that's the case. An amazing example of how that's the case. But some companies have AI psychosis, right? Which basically they hire and I had an interview, right? And this company hired just a guy who's able to say, "Oh yeah, we can do it." No idea, absolutely zero clue what needs to be done.
I call
And
them senior vibe engineers.
right. Literally a vibe engineer, like an actual vibe engineer, right? and it's a CEO of Vibe Engineering. We're talking about, and these companies, they think, oh, okay, that's it. We need a new department. Like we have a machine learning department, right? But no. We need a custom. 'Cause obviously you have machine learning engineers with any kind of modern product. You have machine learning, right? So you'd have machine learning specialists sitting in software engineering, product, whatever. And then these companies would say, no. We need a special. Here's a big ass budget. We will have an AI department. Why? No one knows, because those people have zero clue how to use it, what to use it for. It's just that we need one because that's how, obviously we get more money from investors
Mm-hmm.
and we're able to ship better products. So, and the psychosis is real. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because the people have no idea what they're doing, and and AI is no bad, no good, right? It's just a technology, right? I think we all need to relax about AI being, part of the singularity and just say, look, today's today. We have the
Mm-hmm.
tools we have today, and these are the tools we use, right? Because computers 50 years ago, right? Um, Apple One was released. Actually, Apple Two was released exactly 50 years ago, right? And that computer changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
We had computers before, like the Altair,
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal computers, right? But too expensive. And then we actually had computers that were built for everybody. And again, it's amazing. If you think about it, before you had to, in order to do any real kind of programming, you had to buy yourself a time sharing terminal. Tom, by the way, do you know what a time sharing terminal is?
No, and I don't think the
Okay, you have no
listeners
clue.
either, because
All right.
nobody here is 70 years old.
Right. Well, to the senior vibe coders out there, a time sharing terminal is basically, it used to have a keyboard, it used to have a bunch of microprocessors, and it gave you the ability to access the terminal, but the compute power inside the mainframe. So amazing way. So this just goes back to another subject, which is evolution of mainframes. But um, mainframes are these massive computers with a lot of compute, right? Not too dissimilar from the cloud providers today, right? Of CPUs, GPUs, TPUs, right? Very similar stuff, and but again, that's a whole different discussion. But one was you access the terminal basically, and yeah, you'd be able to program using the horsepower of those computers. And Steve Wozniak took that project to his because they sold one. Did you know that Apple was actually nearly sold to Commodore?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, look at that. If Commodore bought Apple, Apple would have never existed. Um,
And that's a little sub chapter, which is
it's a little fun
history
fact.
history of Apple. History of Apple.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's phenomenal.
So talking about Apple, Tim Cook's gone. He cooked,
Yeah.
but now he's off the cooking line. He's out of the kitchen.
Well, the
What's
stock is up,
stock's up? Is it?
you know. So the stock's through the roof. It's
Yeah.
like it closed. Today is Sunday, 24th of May, right? Um, Stock market is open tomorrow in the US, and it closed on Friday at $311, which is phenomenal and represents, I think, the true value of the company. What I will say though is, they're doing fantastic work, focusing on good stuff. People think Apple is doing everything. They're not. They're focusing on very few things, and they leave it to developers to execute other stuff. But you know, returning to the subject of the mainframe, which is this technology we had around for so long, and you used to need to be able to program actually go somewhere to this air cooled place, right? And now you
Hmm.
can do it sitting on a bench, sitting on a beach somewhere.
Hmm.
This is phenomenal. Amount of compute we have again. But think about this: it's only because we have amazing compute sitting in front of us in our laptop, right? This is just, if you think about that, that is beautiful. And then there are companies out there that are betting everything on the cloud, right? And, you know, you have Microsoft, who's basically the modern IBM. That is my opinion, that they're just trying to make the laptops as thin clients. Again, thin clients, very similar to the time sharing terminals, if you ask me, right? Because that's how they make the money. Make money, mainframes equals CPUs, GPUs, right? All that kind of stuff. So they provide those time hours, right? And then you have Google, which is basically becoming Microsoft, which is, it's all about the OS, and now it's doing the Google Book. We'll see how that goes. But, they have a bit of both. They have businesses that make a computer, right? And also at the same time, they're making, again, these time-sharing terminals. Because Chromebook is technically, doesn't have much compute inside it. It's a very thin client. It's been designed as such. Oracle CEO in the late 90s, Larry, he spoke a lot about thin clients at the dawn, of the internet age, and saying that those devices are going to be fantastic. It just wasn't the time, right? Internet accessibility has been a major bottleneck. And then when we got Wi-Fi, it sort of started making sense. It just shows that technology comes in at a time when everything else is ready around it because of the total user experience, right? And a lot of people, I think, are still not ready for AI. As I mentioned, grandparents and grandmas, they are using AI for very basic tasks. Again, like writing a story. Somehow, writing a story using ChatGPT just, became not so trendy anymore. But that's what those people use it for. What do you
So we've
think?
covered the history of mainframes, Apple. We've dived into big tech politics and who becomes what, the sort of the evolution of IBM, Microsoft, and Google. That's all great. And so that leaves us. Ooh, what should we talk about next? Have you actually described what your product is? Like beyond what Martini is, for example?
Yeah.
Because I think it's quite
Well,
cool. Because
right now, no, because see, there's two products that are called Martini. There's
right.
an OS level orchestrator, and the other is just a simple chatbot that's going to be shipped to the App Store very, very soon. But the amazing thing, like
because we tried to ship something to the App Store,
yeah,
and
we
that
tried to
was
ship
a
something.
major pain in the butt.
That was
So
amazing, but yeah.
how are you going to? What's your shipping to App Store strategy? Because we also have a friend whose whole business is helping people ship to App Store. So, what's the sort of unique selling point that you're gonna try target?
Um, I had a look. So this is interesting. When I was thinking of how to combine everything and make it, more accessible, I realized that there's so many apps on App Store that just simply allow you to download models on your devices. And I thought to myself, this is ridiculous, right? Realistically, first of all, why would you want to sacrifice space? People don't have space in their iPhones anyway. Why do you want to, save a 10 gigabyte, 15 gigabyte model on your iPhone? That's ridiculous. Or maybe fine, a small one, 5 gigabytes. You have an amazing model that runs fantastically, right? So I said to myself, okay, fine. And then none of these applications are really that good, and if somebody just wants to chat, literally just a local chat, nothing fancy, just asking them, oh, this and this and this. The amazing thing about LLMs, right, is, and people really forget this, they've been trained, right? They've been trained on some data. So this means, I'll give you an example, right? So
before we jump into it,
Yeah.
to all the grandmas and the grandpas who might not know what an LLM is. It's a large language model, which is what powers ChatGPT. And when we talk about training, it's assembling a large corpus of data and then basically molding it into a system, basically bashing two rocks against each other until it can string a sentence together. And Michael will dive into how LLMs are trained.
So no, I wasn't gonna dive into that, but
No, no.
you're right. Basically on the large amount of data that you feed into it, then when you provide a prompt, it basically gives some tokens on whatever you've asked it, right? And this is beautiful because this resembles the way we think about search, right? When we do search, they actively store data using robots and different crawlers throughout the internet. They store it and then they semantically search the thing, which is why BERT is so effective, right? And then you are able, but here's the thing, right? Whereas Google search works with links, this is the amazing thing. LLM works with just any data, anything you feed into it, right? And multimodal models are even better because they have even more data. They have very fresh data, right? So I'll give you an example. Let's say you woke up one day and you said, "Damn, I need a suit," right? Tom, I know you only wear the same one T-shirt, but there are people who wake up and say, I need to look presentable today, right? So, and then they're like, oh shit, what do I do? And let's say, for example, they go to their discount store or online and find a suit. There's not much about it. They just know, the model code, and they're like, it doesn't give anything in description. And you think to yourself, well, crap. How do I find out more information? And this is interesting, right? So with suits, it's actually very complicated because they have actual construction in them. So it's not just a piece of fabric over a piece of fabric, right? They have something called a canvas, which is basically the thing that allows to create shape inside the jacket. But also you're like, where did the fabric come from? Like, what's going on? Well, check this out. LLMs, if you feed the model name to LLMs, they will actually know where it's from. And they will know, especially if you put in the brand, they will know what kind of canvas it has. Why? Because everything's been already thrown in them. Can you imagine all the information that ever a company put? All the information that a company has since deleted? Right? Everything. They've put into these LLMs. So that means these are incredible search engines, right? This information, you will never find this piece of information online just because, Google will put a bunch of ads. It'll say, no. The best search result is the brand name. What are you talking about? This is the website. And you're right. It is, but it doesn't answer the question. It goes beyond looking for links to answering the question. And I think that is incredible because then you're able to find out exactly, that niche piece of information that you're looking for. Again, you obviously need to know how to ask questions, but in order to get any kind of good answer in life, you need to be able to ask questions.
So LLMs as the ultimate question answer machine. You can ask them something as complicated as which suit should I go for. You upload your own image and it will suggest you the outfit you should go with. Maybe I should try it instead of having to wear the same white shirt. So LLMs are great systems or even tools for, I think, solving the mundane tasks in life. I was talking to my friend yesterday, catching up with my Brighton friends, and they mentioned that they're not as optimistic about LLMs and they might not share the enthusiasm. So for them, LLMs are machines for basically profit and by big tech. And, the common phrase that you hear nowadays, which is AI is going to steal all your jobs. So people's immediate thought when they hear, oh, AI this, AI that, is AI is going to steal your job. Hence, it's going to steal my job. Hence, I don't see the appeal of it. I don't think we should be pursuing it at all.
Can you give a little bit of context on what they
Yeah.
do, and we can start from there.
What they do, they are like my friend Zuki is a tree surgeon. So blue collar, or maybe some white collar
Okay.
work.
Did you say a tree surgeon?
Yeah, yeah. Cutting trees and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, like cutting dead branches off. You ever seen those guys? Okay, maybe there's no trees where you live, but anyways. Usually when there's like a tree grows, let's say over a rail track, they'll cut off certain branches in a controlled
cool.
manner so it doesn't fall in front of the train.
All right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So maybe that job won't get stolen by AI. But in general, there's a bit of a stigma around AI.
You know what, Tom? I have a question. Like,
Yeah.
it's a reasonably well paid job, right?
Mm.
Like even window glazing is. Why are we doing this? We can be outside every single day, and enjoy life. Do some work that we feel good about ourselves doing. Why we're doing what we're doing.
I love AI.
It's a rhetorical question. Getting back
weather
to
is not always good.
You know,
Weather's not always good. Weather's not always good. Sometimes weather is shit, and then you much rather sit at home and stare at the screen for 8 hours a day, maybe even longer. So yeah, I think every job has pluses and minuses. But I just love AI maxing. I just love sending out little clankers, little AI agents running around, and then I come back from my lunch break and wow, look at all the work they've done.
you just want to be a daddy. That's all.
I just want to be a project manager. I think product manager,
Right.
like just
Yeah.
go.
I feel like the next thing is you get some kids, so you're like, okay, guys, now we're gonna
Yeah, they don't do
some
shit though
tasks around the house.
Yeah, and half.
to-
Yeah. Well, okay.
You know.
Okay, here's the analogy,
You have to,
right?
you have to
The kid-
educate. Yeah, see, you have to train them. You have to pre-train
Yeah,
them.
but-
You have to post-train them.
Yeah, but like it takes fucking 18 years to get anything useful, man. Imagine you send out a kid. You're like, okay, go unload the dishwasher. Child number one. It goes there, and it just calls the wrong tool, and just like smashes everything. It just shits on the floor. Like, sorry, I hallucinated. I thought you meant.
Yeah.
I thought you meant that.
Just take the edge case, put it back,
Right.
and then
Ah.
it'll get the job done.
Which is
you
a
know?
great place to show my product, Clawbench, which helps you
Yeah.
solve that. If your kid keeps hallucinating and keeps doing the wrong task, what you can do is analyze these common failure patterns, feed it back to the LLM, and fix them. It's as simple as that. Check it out, clawbench.com.
Do you want to tell a little bit about the AI technique that it uses to do that? As in, a very senior
Yeah, sure.
AI researcher that you are.
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to throw a bunch of buzzwords, which is recursive self-improvement, meta-harness, sort of stuff. Anyways, what
No,
that actually means...
This is
Yeah.
actually cool. This is
Yeah,
an amazing technology
yeah.
because this will help solve a lot of issues.
Actually, let's tie it quite nicely to the mainframe talk, right? So you were saying how mainframes, at their basic, requires you to rewrite the hardware. You are the bottleneck at every stage, right? If you stop working, the whole process stops evolving. Whereas what we are arriving at now, which is you give an LLM an objective, right? The objective could be something like, hey, navigate these websites, collect this information, write a blog, or a coding task. Rewrite riverside.com from scratch, right? And the task itself is quite hard. So the LLM, the agent itself, will naturally fail at many steps. And if you run it a couple of times, you get to see that it keeps failing at a very specific step. So let's say it keeps failing at the compiling or the building or the UI doesn't look right. So what clawbench.com allows you to do is you send your agent who keeps failing to the website. We record, which steps keep failing. We give you a sort of guarantee of what the accuracy will be in a production environment. So before you deploy your agent and it wreaks havoc on your in your customer support settings, you can first analyze where it's going to fail, prevent that failure, patch it with techniques which allow the agent to learn on the go, and then be more confident when you do deploy it that it's going to behave within a certain guarantee, right? It's going to be correct 90% of the time, and you can prepare for that and further adapt and have more reliable agents. So that's what Clawbench does. If anybody's interested, please hit me up. And yeah, that's it. But yeah, recursive self-improvement is
That's how
where
you're able to bring this podcast in the first place. I just want to say,
sponsored by Clawbench. Yeah.
Well,
they help me
maybe
pay for
soon.
Riverside.
Yeah.
Yeah. So recursive self-improvement is very much going to be a hot topic in 2026, 2027, 2028, where agents will improve themselves, will, let's say, create new science, unlock new maths, and we don't even know today what the progress is going to be like, right? We have no idea what they're going to come up with, but the point is that we just leave them running on their own. We take ourselves out of the loop completely. We just go watch Netflix, and agents come up with all sorts of crazy shit. That's what the future is going to be.
What's the craziest shit that you've seen so far?
I think that there are examples of an agent like rewriting their own tools, prompts. I mean, prompt tuning is a technique that's been around for a while. But I think an agent which can hit a dead end, let's say in development or in some kind of a process, and without your intervention, it can go out, patch itself, find the relevant information from a different source, and proceed as it was supposed to. So it doesn't have to bother you, asking you for additional details. Or if it connects to your context, like it knows who you are, it has access to your information, it can pull that, act on your behalf, do client outreach, etc., etc. Where I think the industry is moving, basically completely autonomous agents.
Yeah, I think, and this is interesting. I think a lot of people are confused about, what's happening in the industry space. And, again, as you asked the question earlier, are software engineers relevant or irrelevant? I think they're still relevant because, you need to be able to write. So structured output is all the rage. I've been talking to so many entrepreneurs, and all of them are basically saying, yeah, we love structured output, but now it's been integrated onto a model training level, right? Which is beautiful. And you're the kind of guys that, would obviously go out there, train these things, and, to you, it's more on a conceptual level. But for software engineers, it's incredible because then they can design tools and, use AI in a much more dedicated way, which has not been possible before. If you wanted to use structured output before, you basically had to prompt your way to saying, okay, this is a binary question,
Mm-hmm.
right? But now you don't have to do it. It's on a training level, which is phenomenal. And
So just to give a bit of background to listeners, a structured output is a concept where you don't let your ChatGPT say anything it wants to. You're very much limited to, hey, create a table, create a answer using this format, make sure it's not too long, make sure it's not too short. Which even when working with clients, I've noticed that they have a very specific understanding of what they want the LLM to do, but might not have the techniques to do that reliably. So they keep living in 2024, which is the prompt space, and the higher level of abstraction, which is like context engineering and structured outputs, is now moving even further to sort of harness engineering, which is like you make sure the agent physically cannot output a different type of output, right? It has to stick to a certain text format, audio format, etc., etc. So yeah, as you were saying, Michael.
yeah, I agree. I think, a good way to put it is you have again, it goes back to the idea of having the probability distribution. And when you use a schema to be able to define exactly. But the thing is, what's incredible is that we, over the past 2 years, what's happened is, and that's why, in my opinion, I really like Gemini, you know, is because unlike Claude, they actually have their framework baked into the model training. So it follows the schema really well. Again, using recursive learning, they, fine tune to make sure, yeah. So you generate these schemas, and you can have many sub instances of the AI. Because again, everything is now incredibly agentic. If you're not doing agentic, right, what are you doing? It's like you don't have an instance. An instance isn't basically an agent at this point because you send it off to do something and it will bring back the result, give it to the other agents. And it could be like 5 agents giving it to one agent to then compile information together and then present it to. And you, as you said, when you shorten this distribution, right, the deterministic nature of it means that you're going to get the answer more likely. So engineering more reliable systems has been a really, really big thing. And this has been the most exciting thing because this bridges the gap between software engineering and actually, AI engineering.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think this is something that is really difficult to do in recursive learning because recursive learning is good for the same, it doesn't fundamentally change the architecture, right? So something that I've noticed, when you build a project, right? AI builds a project. And this is AI sucks, at this still, right? It used to suck, it still sucks. File management, horrible.
Mm-hmm.
AI is like, yeah, let's write a big ass file.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be huge, and you have these massive files and
Mm-hmm.
there's no defined architecture. You look through it and your human brain thinks, I'm reading spaghetti. What's going
Mm-hmm.
on, right? And so I'm writing Martini, and obviously I write it using AI, but I read everything, like every single line of code that's generated, because I have to understand it. I have to check it. I have to basically verify that, oh, this is a good change, and recently I was looking through the code and I said to myself, I need to simplify this. This is not, it's a big content view file. And so I separated it, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and I simplified it to its most, simple extent. Unfortunately, because I simplified it to the most extent, in Xcode there's something called a preview, which basically compiles a bunch of UI elements and it allows you the option to preview that. Unfortunately, I had to simplify it so much that the preview wasn't working. But it was important. The reason it was important is because now when I feed that file into context,
Mm-hmm.
the AI actually is able to make changes. Because if a file's too big, AI makes a change and all of a sudden it has a bunch of errors.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, this is useless. Because for me, the thing is, I my approach is that I want the one shot answer to be reliable. Because usually it's
Mm-hmm.
like minor change, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't have the time and patience to sit there and watch the AI try to debug itself because I've done that, I've been there, and it doesn't end, and then the code looks like spaghetti, right?
What's the model behind the AI assistant in Xcode?
You can connect any
I
model
can
that you
connect.
like.
Which one do you tend to use?
I love Gemini.
You love Gemini. How are you
Uh,
finding Gemini as a coding assistant?
so good. I
Really?
like yeah, I just use the Gemini Flash. It's phenomenal.
Which Gemini 3 Flash?
They no, they just came out with a new one. I think it's 3.5.
3.5?
Yeah,
How are you finding the Gemini 3.5 Flash?
so good. I
Really?
look, I don't know. I mean, people are on about Anthropic's, models. They're on about like ChatGPT's models. Flash is cheaper
Hmm.
per token. It gives me better results.
But it's not that much cheaper if you actually look at it now. I don't know if you looked at the pricing, but I think it's $3 per input, $9 per output, which is, I think, almost three times more expensive than their previous one. I'm not saying Gemini is a bad series of models.
Which model?
3.5.
The Flash.
Mm-hmm. Per
Well,
API.
they have the flashlight
Mm.
that is coming out horribly.
Flashlight. Gemini
But
Flashlight.
that's actually the name of the model, um, and it's basically the miniature version of Flash. They still haven't upgraded it. That model is fantastic for computer vision. I've used it in the
Mm.
past. It has in the most insane pricing. It is so cheap, and if you use it correctly, just in the right places, it's phenomenal. The big
Because
model,
recently, yeah, go on.
I was gonna say the big model is quite expensive. But again, for the Flash model, you can choose how much the thinking time is. I'm still of the opinion that like I've used the thinking, and do you know what I found? I've been using
Mm.
thinking for over a year. I found and this is hilarious. Whenever a model thinks, not only it gives me a shorter answer, but when it comes to coding, it gives me a crappier answer.
Yes, that is a large consensus I've seen before. That thinking tokens are good for certain tasks, but bad for others. And reasoning in general, it works well on certain like complex problems, but on certain coding problems, people swear by GPT 5.5 no thinking, for example, when you're
Yeah.
working in the
You
terminal.
can't do thinking when you're vibing. There is no thinking. You just do it. You just do it. Look, listen to Donald. He knows. He never thinks. He doesn't remember the last time he had a thought. So I no, I
Which
completely
model do you
agree.
think Donald Trump uses?
I don't think he has a model. I
I
don't
think
think
it's
he
Grok.
thinks at
Surely
all.
Grok.
Um,
Or like which model does the Trump family uses? Like the Trump Junior.
Mythos probably. Who knows?
Or yeah,
Get some early
Mythos
preview
two.
access.
Mythos two. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the guys. Can you really hate the hustle? That's the question. Can you
Of a
really hate the
junior.
hustle? No, just in general of Trump family. Can you really hate the hustle? Um, yes,
I
yes
like
and
how
no.
on the 48-minute marks we pivot straight into politics podcast. Um,
Yeah, because
no, I can't say I
you
hate the
hustle.
hustle,
Yeah,
but is that really a hustle or is it just like a straight up
I
night day
mean,
robbery?
it is a robbery, but at the same time, you get it. It makes
Yeah.
sense. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I
Anyways,
just get it.
anyways,
Back to the
quick
models.
question, quick question,
Yeah.
quick question. Kill, fuck, marry, Gemini, GPT-5, Opus.
I think Gemini has the best potential long term, just because they have the hardware, they have the software, and again, think about this, right? This is truly incredible. I think
So hang
right
on,
if
you marrying Gemini? Just to clarify.
well, yeah, but I want to explain why.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, Mary Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
I think because they have the TPUs, they have the fastest TPUs, right? And they split them recently at the new Google I/O. They basically said, okay, instead of using our generic TPU, now we're gonna have a TPU for inference and a TPU for training,
Mm,
which is
makes sense.
phenomenal, right? This is not something anybody has shipped, right? And bear in mind, Google has their own software.
Mm-hmm.
Apple's foundation model has been trained before on the Google's TPUs, and TPUs are the cheapest hardware to use. What they're cheaper than GPUs. And Nvidia is still big only because of software lock-in. The same thing happened with IBM in mainframes, you know. And I really think that where coming out of age, where new models being trained, and people will say, you know what, screw Nvidia, we're going with Google. Because again, currently the only models that I've seen that have structured output, a foundation model and Gemini, well, obviously, and Gemma is phenomenal, but in terms of like the big models, the flagship models, it's Gemini, and people are jumping at Anthropic, saying Dario is, and also that guy is just trouble, right? In general, people really are hating on him because of what he's currently saying about, we're gonna lose jobs, everyone's gonna lose their jobs,
I
and
didn't realize he sounds like that. Well, anyway, there goes my Anthropic subscription. There goes my Anthropic sponsorship.
I No, I think we'll be fine. If they give us enough money, I think we will, respect the hustle. I
Okay.
probably not though,
All
honestly.
right. So, marry Gemini.
Yeah.
What about the other two?
Uh, it seems like everyone's leaving OpenAI. Sorry, closed AI. My bad. Everyone's leaving closed AI. So probably just kill them already.
Okay.
Like
Interesting.
put them out of their misery. And
But no, but the models, not the company.
both.
GPT 5.5. You're gonna kill GPT 5.5.
Yeah.
And you're gonna fuck Opus.
Yeah, it seems to be the case. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So, do you have a preference between Opus and 5.5?
I mean, look, when everyone's distilling Opus, I think that
Hmm.
because the companies they put the cash behind the initiatives and say, no, 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 we're not going to distill ChatGPT, we're going to distill Opus.
Hmm.
Like,
Interesting.
how do you feel
Interesting.
about that?
Let's say if I was to do the ranking, I'm definitely marrying GPT 5.5, fucking Opus,
Ooh, okay,
and killing Gemini.
all right, interesting.
Yeah,
All right. Well,
because
at
in
least
my
at least
opinion,
we're on the same level
yeah,
for okay, all right.
Opus still has its definitely has its potential. Super excited for what comes next. But the recent rankings I've done at Clawbench, and just comparing the results of, let's say, Gemini versus GPT 5.5, it's something's happening at Google where their models are lagging behind, and quite seriously now. So like if you look at the benchmark results for 3.5 Flash, um, it's it's very much a benchmarked model, and maybe when the Pro comes out, it'll be really good. But it's weird that they led with the Flash first, because I think everyone now expects like serious firepower. Yeah, I don't know what's happening there, but
Well, I
definitely lagging
think they,
behind.
they have a different business model.
Yeah, I guess so. But at the same time, they are Google, so why can't they just go for everything? Surely it's like they're big enough that they can just make killer models. I mean,
It's
Gemma
it's it's
4
it's,
is
che- it's
killer
cheaper
model.
to well, yeah, but it's cheaper to train small models.
Yeah, but true.
Look, think about this. Think about this, right?
Mm,
So people at Google, right? They've
mm,
been doing this stuff for a really long time. They're not newbies.
mm,
And bear in
mm.
mind, Google has invested in Anthropic,
Yeah.
right? So Google has an invested interest in Anthropic, the division of Google. However, the way Alphabet works is, for some reason, they say, no, 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 no. Whatever Google Ventures does, we will do it ourselves anyway, right? So phenomenal business model. And and then the actual team behind Gemma and Gemini, right? Their business model is very simple. I'm not gonna touch upon their philosophy right this moment, but the business model is, if you look at actually where the models are being used for actual purposes, it's the smallest models, right? We're talking about Flash, we're talking about, you know, the
True.
flashlight, and
Nice.
people are enjoying it because they're enough. They're good enough that you can use them for, computer vision stuff. they're good enough that you can use them to extract, things from images.
Yeah.
For the Google Book they're coming out, or the phones, right? For the phones, for example, they have TPUs in them. In the new Google Book, we're supposed to believe that they have TPUs. They probably do. We don't know quite yet, but let's just say, for the argument's sake, that they do have TPUs, right? That means they have a local Gemma model running, and then if they need anything more horsepower-wise, they will just use up one of the small Google Gemini models. Whereas for the Anthropic, their models, even the mid-size model, is bigger than the Flash model.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So they're banking on the fact that in order to raise more money, they need to have the biggest, baddest model in town. Right. Mm-hmm. Which is fine. That's their business model. Google has a different business model. And, I need a model that's really quick. Mm-hmm. Because again, I prompt, on very incremental basis. I don't need, I don't need to go to Pro and say, right, build me this massive application. No, I say, I've made some choices. I wrote them down. I know exactly what I need to do. And then let me, as you said, right, being a manager is, then I tell AI, okay, this is what I need here. This is what I need here. And then I, put everything together and then just check it, right? Review, code review, phenomenal. Then, I do some paperwork and I ship it. I think it's a different business model, but I think it's a business model that we'll see in the future actually making money, because Gemini and Gemma, right, that part of Google, is not actually losing money, right? They, per token, they're actually making money.
Really?
Well, because they're focusing on small models. Mm-hmm. If you use Pro, you run out of tokens very quickly. Right? But it's because it's meant for certain workflows, right? You and I both went to a lecture, remember, at I forget what it was called, but there was a guy who presented a tool who basically tested a bunch of these models, and he has this editor which allows you, what you describe the thing you need to do, and it basically tells you which model is the best for that particular task.
Yes, Batir, the Uzbek guy, right?
Yeah.
At the Tessel, I think it was Tessel events. Yeah, by King's Cross. Yeah.
So Tessel has really good events. Maybe they can sponsor us.
Please.
Yeah, but he had a really good idea of the fact that each model has obviously slightly different weights, and that's not a disadvantage. It's actually an advantage, Like, even think about the size of models. Like, you have on device, and then literally, let's say, right, you have an old grandpa who's like, I need to know, this thing, right? And then they can use their Gemma model to quickly find it out, like, go on Google Maps and be like, oh yeah, there's a coffee shop that doesn't close until this time, which is a bit,
No, it's actually a really good point you're making, because think about when you make an association with Google, it's the search engine, maps, the G-Stack stuff, Gmail, whatever. And for that, you need quick, cheap, and fairly accurate responses, right? So like Google search, right? I think the way most people interact with Gemini models is through Google search, when it does a little summary. And that has to be just well enough. It just has to be good enough. As opposed to something like, enterprise models, which is Opus GPT 5.5. And the way I code, which is I set a large goal for the model to achieve. I give it the verification loops, and I just leave it running for hours, and then making sure that it documents its findings, reflects on them, etc., etc. Which is just a different approach to AI, which is actually not your standard customer way of interacting with AI.
But again, there's different ways to use the model in the first place, right? So when I talk about myself coding, I basically use it as an autocomplete. Right? This is very different. I don't leave it unsupervised,
Mm-hmm.
right? I tell it exactly what piece of code to write, and it does it, and then I use the piece of code in my project, right? And but obviously, the kind of work you do, you're more interested in seeing how well it handles on its own, right? I don't have personally hours in the day spending because I need to be able to supervise
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. So it's a different
Mm.
kind of way. But I completely agree with you. But again, all the smaller models are actually more enterprise friendly.
Well, it's not in theory, yes, but what the data is showing, I don't know if you've seen this thing where actually Anthropic overtook OpenAI in their share of enterprise customers. So they
Yeah.
have now more than half, which is just, I think Sam Altman is just like panicking right now because they're now shifting. OpenAI has to shift back to clients, back to customers,
Mm,
but now they have these fucking massive models, and they're really pushing Codex hard. And personally, I'm a Codex kind of guy, but I think they lost momentum where agentic coding is associated with Claude Code. It's basically the same thing. It's like beginner coders, like people who dabble in coding, associate Claude Code with the tool to use. So they lost a
mm,
bit of momentum there, which I think they're trying to catch up with Darius and the team. And I think both products are great. The only thing is Anthropic has a bit of a reputation now for lobotomizing their models, which I
yeah.
hope they'll stop doing since they got access to Elon's Colossus. Uh, Please stop fucking the models. Like I'm paying you $100 per month. Please stop lobotomizing them
Yeah.
because every once in a while they just fucking become so much dumber. And that's the one thing that OpenAI doesn't do. I think GPT 5.5 is a very consistent model and the goat for backend development. Personal opinion.
Well, at this point, just by yourself, the upcoming Mac Studio, and just upload, whatever model you want on it.
Mm.
That's like insane in
Well, you don't
having
even
a
need to
server
spend
running.
12. Yeah, you don't even need to spend 12 grand. You can do, if you want to go the PC route, the sort of server route, I think you only need like 24 gigabytes of VRAM to run Qwen 3.6,
Oh yeah,
quantized,
yeah,
of
yeah.
course.
No, no, no. But
Yeah,
I'm
and that
talking
shit
about
is good. That shit is good as
I'm talking
well.
about just get the top Max upcoming Mac Studio because it's gonna have amazing inference. And
That's the next
upload
level, yeah.
up get the biggest fattest model
Yeah,
on
yeah,
it.
yeah.
But again, the question is why? All right, what are you doing with it? What I've been seeing with
Sovereign,
people.
sovereign AI.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Right,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
all for
you get
sovereign
to,
AI.
yeah,
Well,
sovereign
the
AI.
thing is, right. One of the things that I really like about local AIs is, and the reason why I'm really passionate about, like grandpa and grandma, right? Obviously, I'm joking about it, but it's actually more than that. Like, I would use the product myself for really
Mm,
stupid shit.
mm,
Um, let's say I just want to look something up, you know, and I'm like, or just thinking about stuff. And I'm just curious what the model in its wide range, you know, data set will give me. And
mm.
maybe I don't particularly want it to be, online feeding my history, so the FBI could later find it out, what's happening in my chats, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, nothing shady, just like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of
it's a
course.
little bit weird. It's a little bit weird because they use everything. They have humans actually check and see
Reviewing.
what's, yeah,
Yeah.
reviewing the chats, and that's a little bit weird, And there are some things that you're okay with, but other things you're like, eh, maybe I would rather not share those personal details,
Yeah.
you know,
Uh,
about like relationship drama between Bob and Jane, and like,
mm.
ooh, which one is like winning the argument here or whatever. Um, yeah, I think there's a place for everything. I think people are way too quick to say, this tool is the best, it's supreme. But again, for what, right?
I think it comes down a little bit to like this nerd culture of people love to sort of pick a niche and then they will defend it against all odds. It's definitely something I've noticed in guys who are really into something. They'll just pick a model and be like, no, 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 everything else is shit. I mean, you can make any model work if you know the weaknesses and if you're really like paying attention and you're tweaking them. But I think the nature of the AI race is that it's quite polarizing. And I think people are looking for sponsorships, for deals. The founder of OpenClaw, shout out Peter Steinberger, joining a team, and thus his whole product is now associated with a team in opposition to Anthropic, let's say. So it's this sort of Cold War-esque bipolar world of like, oh, you're either one or the other, and if you're for OpenAI, Anthropic is evil, or if you're for Anthropic, OpenAI is evil, which is a little bit comical, to be completely honest. End of the day, they're just like corporations with agendas.
No, I agree. Looks really good on you, given the fact that you're completely on the baseline, on the bench, at Meta.
Oh yeah, I'm just somewhere else.
You're like, I'm not participating. This because we clearly forgot Olama, but
Olama?
just leaving it out there. Not saying anything about Zuck. We love you, Zuck.
No comment. No comments. Listen, Michael, I think we're at a good point to tie it up before we get too silly.
Yeah.
Silliness is off the charts.
Before we say something that's gonna get.
Before we say something, and first fucking episode gets straight into the bin.
Yeah.
Tom will be there on editor, removing all the offensive stuff.
All the offensive
didn't
stuff.
happen. Yeah, I'll ask Gemini, see how good it is, to self censor.
I'd be curious. That's
yeah.
Give us
Here's
an update.
Yeah. Here's a clickbaity title. We gave podcast episode to 3 models. See which one censored itself the most, or like.
I think actually that's a really good.
I think it's pretty good. It could even be like a competition on Clawbench. Be like, you submit your agent and you see who produces the best podcast, like the most engaging, like clip farming sort of stuff. Clip agent. Have you seen clipping?
I'm curious about the
agents?
editing. I'm curious how well each one of them would edit, because
Claude Code was quite good.
It's also very expensive to do so.
No, because the way it worked is that it makes a transcript, and then it looks by the transcript of what to keep and what not.
No, that's smart.
I mean, Riverside also has something, but yeah, Claude Code specifically looks for themes, and I fed it the demo I gave at AI Builders to just do some clips, and it was actually quite good. And it was like specifically like, here's the Q&A section, here's the demo section, here's like the question and the answer as one clip. Zero touch. It's pretty crazy. Like AI editing
that's pretty smart.
Is now there. So yeah, that's what I'll be doing. Vibe editing.
Yeah, give us an update in the next episode.
Hell yeah. More episodes to come. Alright, man. I'll let you get on with the rest of your day. What are you up to? Hang on, let me just stop this and then we'll continue.
Yeah.